Welcome back to the channel. My name is Kaylina and this is the Magic Society, and today I have a book review for you, but not only that, also kind of a conversation on the topic since it is a nonfiction book. I love nonfiction as it really allows you to have some conversations and some thoughts about, different topics in the occult world or just something interesting in general. And so let's get started. Okay, so the book I have for you today is Understanding Your Soul's Journey Through Time, Past Lives, and Ancient Lands and Other Worlds by Shelley A. Kahir, PhD. And this is what the book looks like. And I'm telling you, I've been trying to get through this book since I went to Salem in October. That's how long this book has just been kind of sitting on my shelf. I read a little bit of it on the airplane, and then it's literally sat there for this long until finally I was like, no, I need to finish up some of these books that I have started. And so this is the one that I decided to finish up. And overall, it was like an unexpected surprise, because I was not expecting to get quite as much out of this book as I thought I would. Just because, while yes, I believe in past lives, and I do believe my soul has had some past lives, I didn't know if I was gonna get any impressions, is what I'm calling them for lack of a better word, of visions or any clues as to what my past lives might have been. I have an idea of what a couple of them were, maybe previously, or certain areas that I feel drawn to go to or visit for some reason, which I've never visited or really had any association with. I just know that there's two places that I really want to go to and I feel drawn to. But at first when I started reading this book, I wasn't super into it, because how she has it set up is that you go through all these ancient civilizations and then you experience past regressions, or she gives you a little past regression to do, and then you have a journal prompt about it, which is perfectly fine. It's just starting out, I was not really connecting with any of them. Like she starts out with hunters and gatherers, way back in time, and I was just like, I'm not connecting with this at all. And so I almost kind of thought about not reading it, and then I was like, no, I picked up this book for a reason. I need to give it a little bit more of a chance. And then as I was reading along, it kind of changed, because certain civilizations I did get impressions, and I did get almost images in my mind of scenes, and very specific. And so I was like, okay, if you're into this kind of stuff, you're gonna be like, that is highly possible you were experiencing something. Or if you're on the flip side, you could be like, you just have an overactive imagination. That's not a past life. So I'm kind of in between, it's important in the occult world not to doubt yourself, but it's okay to have questions and be skeptical about things as well, because there's no way to prove any of this. So I was like, okay. I just found it interesting though that there is only certain ones that I actually had visions about. So I'm just going to talk about this book a little bit and some of the visions that I had. And yeah, and then I'd love to know if other people have had past life regressions too, or you have a feeling a past life that you might have lived. It's a really interesting subject. So the other thing I want to mention about the book is that, one, I wished there was some audio version maybe, and there might be one out there. I just got the hard copy. But because she says in the book that it's a good idea to pre-record yourself reading the past life exercise, and then listening to it and trying to do it, because obviously there's no way to get in a altered state of consciousness when you're just reading. I mean, you're a little bit more relaxed, but you're not actually in an altered state necessarily. And so it would have been easier if I had been able just to listen to it, or if you buy the book, there could be some kind of code where you could go and get all the little past life regression exercises, because I mean, I to be honest, I did not sit there and record myself reading all of these. In fact, I didn't even really deep dive into any of them. I just kind of let whatever came, you know, into my head, and then evaluated that information. Now, there are a couple of them in here that I would like to do just deeper meditations on, but haven't done them yet. Secondly, this book is, you know, kind of history as well. So you do get quite a bit of like history about each civilization that she's talking about, which is obviously important, but it's not like reading a 6th grade history book. It's not super like boring and like small little nonchalant details. She gets to the important stuff, and then you move on to the regression. But if you just absolutely hate history and that is just not your thing, this book probably is not going to be interesting at all to you. So yeah. Now for like kind of the different things that hit me while I was reading it. So she talks about supertrophy, which is just the concept of randomly falling into a memory of a past life, and you can literally be doing anything and you just kind of slip into this like memory. And so that was a definition that was kind of important. And then she talks about thought forms a lot, and how thought forms, they can be good or they can be bad, but sometimes they can get stuck in our physical body, and like our energy will get stuck too. So that's maybe why sometimes we have lessons from way back in past lives that we're still holding on to today, because we've never gotten rid of that energy and we've never like healed and let it go. And I do believe in this because like I feel like at least in America we're so disconnected from like we have to separate everything into categories. It has to be either science, it has to be religion, it has to be only these things, and they cannot combine. And that is not true. Our physical body, our spiritual body, our emotions, like our energy, it all is together as one unit. And so when certain energies can get stuck, it can actually cause physical ailments. And so I've found this in massage, as we've learned and experienced, like in class, that certain areas of the body will hold certain emotions. So if you're working on a certain area, it can actually trigger what we call emotional release, and people will experience like deep emotions. So they can either start crying about just, and they may not even necessarily know for sure what it is that upset them, but they just know that they have like emotion that they have to let out. And so, and even in school, like we learned of these extreme cases where like a lady would have like maybe lost a child in childbirth, and all of a sudden like she'll start experiencing as if she's like giving birth, like, and having the pain of it and having the emotion of it, and like you literally have to let her like go through the whole process, and then like actually experiencing like a spiritual vision of a baby. And that was wild to me to hear that that's happened on several occasions, that one of my teachers actually experienced it with a student. I've never experienced anything that out there, but I have had people just either all of a sudden just start opening up to me about random stuff in their life, or that they will just feel kind of like they've just, I don't know, emotionally let something go. And so that is really cool to see, because it really does show you that your physical body and your spiritual body are all interconnected, and what affects one will affect the other, and vice versa. But that's kind of a different subject. So, but yeah. And then another note that I wrote was, this just reminds me so much of like the saying that you're an old soul, like, and how you can just meet somebody and just know that they've experienced a lot of lifetimes and they've been around the block a couple times, and they may doesn't even matter like what age they are in this life. You just know that there's something old about their soul. And so I definitely feel like I've met a couple people in my life like that where I'm just like, this is an old soul. This is someone who has experienced a lot, not just in this lifetime, but in many others. And then I also feel like there are those people that just don't even feel like they're quite human, you know? Like not in like a creepy way, but just like not dimensionally, physically only human. So yeah. And then she also talks about using your imagination and how it can be really helpful in like past life regressions, and I also agree with that, because although when you're using your imagination you may feel like you're just making shit up, it's still allowing your brain to become more comfortable with abstract information and allowing more of those psychic hits to be able to come through more effectively. And yeah, asking questions is always good, but at the same time, you don't want to doubt yourself either, because if you're always like, was this or was this, then you're never gonna actually be able to truly like embrace all that is actually probably coming to you. Even though I know that's easier said than done, because even when I was doing this, I was like, oh, I'm just making crap up in my mind. Like this isn't really like a psychic hit, is it? Like, I don't know. And yeah, I don't know. That's the answer. I don't know. But it was interesting that there was only certain topics that I actually felt like I was receiving information for, while the other ones I just read and I was like, okay, cool. Learned something new about that civilization and I moved on. But like, for instance, I also love receiving information from my dreams, which I've already been mentioning that I'm working with Morpheus more, trying to get just better at lucid dreaming and hopefully astral projection, and taking my dreams and learning things in reality. And so, for instance, the other night, I dreamed that my fake temporary crown was going to fall out. And then what happens on Saturday night, a day after that dream? My tooth falls out. So it's kind of helpful when the universe gives you like little heads up on things, even if you can't actually prevent what's going to happen from happening. But it made it so that I was already prepared for it and I wasn't actually quite as mad when it actually happened. So yeah, the universe talks to us in all different kinds of ways, and past regression is just another way of learning about who we are supposed to be as people and what lessons we're supposed to learn while we're here. And she mentions that our lessons throughout our lifetimes tend to be very similar to each other. Like we tend to kind of have the same general mission in each lifetime, and we're just growing more and more and more every time we relive another life. We just evolve that much more. At least that's the hope and the idea. So she also goes over not only different civilizations, but different like topics such as like grief, or if you've experienced magic in your past life, or just a time of like great change and what you learned from that, or if your soul has experienced war. And so she goes over all of those too. So some of these regressions involve those certain topics. And for instance, like the grief one, there's like a war one and there's a grief one. And it was funny because while reading about the war, I didn't feel like my soul's ever been directly involved in a war. Like, I was sitting there just thinking about it, and my soul doesn't feel that. It doesn't feel like, I feel like some people can like feel as if they've been in a war of some sort. Now, it's not to say that I don't think I've lost people in a war. I feel like I have. In fact, one of the impressions I was given involved my spirit guide that is very much in tune with me today. And I was shown a vision of him in a blue uniform with like gold buttons and a blue like kind of rounded hat. And I could feel myself like very emotionally like upset. And so I feel like he was going off to war, and I don't think he ever came back. And so I feel like that was maybe the lifetime he was a brother. And so I got that image, and I had to look up the war because originally I thought it was the American Revolutionary War, but the hats weren't right. So then I looked up some of the other wars, and I think it was the Civil War. I think he was in the Civil War, and I remember, or don't, I say I remember, but the vision I was given was him like looking at me, and I could feel just like this immense sorrow because I knew there was a good chance I probably wouldn't see him again, and he was in his uniform, and that's all I got. But then I definitely got the impression that he didn't come back. And so, which is funny because in this lifetime, I am sometimes overly obsessed with the thought of losing people that I love. Like, I will just randomly over fixate on it. Like, just randomly think about it. It will randomly hit me. And I'll be perfectly fine, and all of a sudden I'll just start worrying about losing somebody that I care about. And like, I feel like I think about it more than the average person should. And it could be maybe because I'm holding on to something from my past where I lost somebody and I had no control over it, and so I still just like have that anxiety. And it's not even because there's a single thing wrong with anybody around me. It's just it'll randomly hit, and I've gotten better about it over the years. Like, it hasn't occurred quite as much as it used to, but when I was like younger in like high school and stuff, I really would have like random anxiety. And then when I was first married to my husband, I had a lot of random anxiety about that, like just thinking about how I was going to survive without him. Now obviously I'm surviving just fine without him, but for different reasons. But yeah, so as far as grief, I don't feel like I was ever directly in a war, but I feel like I had family members that were. And then there's another section like involving kind of war that was more like for instance, I feel like I was part of, obviously, during that Civil War time period, the topic of slavery, and I was at least glad to see that my past life brother was on the side of freeing the slaves, so that was good, because, you know, we all probably have past life memories of things that we probably aren't overly proud of, but I was at least glad to see that we were on the right side of that war. So I feel like I was involved with maybe some tough subjects that involved like justice, such as slavery, or such as like the women's suffrage movement, because I still today get fired up about that kind of stuff, and I feel like that comes from a past life of just still seeing all the injustice that happened way back in the day still being fought for now. And it just blows my mind that as a culture we still have not come, it seems like, very far from where we started. So that frustrates me, and I've always been outspoken about that because I think injustice and intolerance is one of the worst things that you can do to a human being. But besides that, so I feel like I was part of like movements, like different movements for freedom and justice, but not necessarily like the feeling you would get if you were directly involved in a war, if that makes any sense. Yeah, so then some of the other impressions I've got. So I got about 73 pages in before I actually like started feeling anything for any of this. So, which obviously is not going to be the case for everybody. Some people may start off right off the bat remembering things from way back in like the caveman days, but that was not me. I don't think my soul is that like evolved and that old. I think it did, however, maybe live a life in Egypt at some point, which was said to be not uncommon for a lot of souls, because they even say that there's a lot of souls today that have lived lives in Egypt. And so that was the first time I actually felt, wasn't given necessarily like a true vision, but in school, ancient Egypt was always like one of my favorite topics. I've always found that culture very interesting and way ahead of its time. Like, which there's a reason they say like an alien race helped build the pyramids, because it was so far advanced for its time. And along with the Egyptians, the Aztecs, I always feel like I'm interested in like in school I was always interested in like the Aztecs and ancient Egypt. And not that that means that I've had a past life necessarily with any of those civilizations, but I do find it interesting that as well as that, I've also always been more interested in the Egyptian like gods and goddesses as well, compared to like some of the other ones. But that doesn't necessarily mean anything. It's just I might have more of an interest in that. But I thought it was really cool because I read that so here's just like a little snippet. They were truly very unique culture in terms of their social structures. Women were not subjected to men and could own property, run businesses, become priestesses, and even pharaohs. Divorces happened too, and on the somewhat rare occasion when they did, both spouses divided the property. Egyptians had fun and played games. Hieroglyphs showed depictions of the popular Senate board. They dressed up and went to parties and festivals to celebrate their gods, and they made a conscious and all-encompassing effort to prepare on a daily basis for their eventual demise. So that I found really interesting too, is that there was so much more equality between genders. Like, and I feel like where along the line did we lose that? Because if you look then into the future, it's like all the advancements and all the evolving that the ancient Egyptians potentially could have provided us. Somewhere along the line we lost it. Like we lost it, and it's like we had to start over. It's almost like all the wisdom that these alien beings maybe gave us, it's like it was taken all back for some reason. Like we weren't worthy of it or something. And so now we're like relearning all of this stuff, and we still haven't figured it out. And yeah, just between the technology and the way society was run, and it's like they had it kind of well established from the sounds of it. I mean, I'm not saying that culture was perfect. It was not. They did some pretty brutal things if you were in the wrong, but at the same time, it's like, yeah, you see all this like forward thinking of women have these rights just as equal to men, and the advanced technology of the pyramids, and yeah, it's interesting. It's really interesting. It just seems like it was a much different civilization than any other ones that have lived. And then I feel like somewhere along the line, somehow we just lost some of that, and I don't know what happened. Another person that I would love to just learn more about is Cleopatra. I think she's just got this mystery to her that I would definitely love to learn more about, and the fact that yeah, she was a female pharaoh way back in the day, and I mean she's like a major like historical figure that, and for that time period, it just, yeah, it's crazy. So the next one was, so it talked about how that yes, there are reincarnated Egyptians living during modern times. We have collectively gathered again during their most important time in history for a reason. We are experiencing a cultural renaissance of our own in modern times, so what better way to explore our expanding future than through our soul memories of one of the greatest civilizations on Earth? And so then I just had this like random thought that is probably a random stupid thought, but what if like all the occult like YouTubers are these Egyptians, and we've come back down and we're all just trying to learn and evolve and share with each other like the stuff that we pick up on? And that's just a really random thought and not even true, but I just thought, wouldn't that be interesting? Because I feel like so many people think that it's these big name business people that are going to be the ones to evolve the world and make like such a big difference. But if you think about it, every big empire falls at some point. and that it's actually the smaller, littler groups and people that make the most difference, because we can connect better to the average, like, you know, person. And so I thought that was an interesting thought, maybe, that it's, you know, it's the smaller people that make a bigger impact than these huge empires of large technology businesses and whatnot. So then it was talking about how the super trophy, like, travel can really impact that. And when you travel somewhere, you can have random hits of, like, just a thought of maybe a past life. And that makes perfect sense. You know, you go somewhere and all of a sudden you just, like, I don't know, have this impression that you've either been there before, or you can picture yourself being there and, like, living a life. It's just, it's so, like, mind-blowing to me that, yeah. And I feel like that can happen with, like, just deja vu too. Like, you'll just be somewhere and you'll be like, I swear I've already done this before. Like, I've already been here. I've already done this exact thing before. Like, why does it feel like that? And I have, like, random deja vu, not like past life regressions, just random clicks of, I feel like I've already done this. And it's maybe just, like, the most simple thing, like, not past life related, but that feeling is weird. That feeling is really weird when you feel like you've already done the exact same thing. It's strange. And so one of the, like, journal prompts is when you experience, like, a super trophy, like, journaling about it. And so I want to try to keep more, like, tabs on that moving forward. Like, if I get any impressions from anywhere that I've been, to just write it down and note it down, and it could mean something. Another journal entry that I want to do was about connecting to the oracle, and just getting some kind of advice from her, it, he, whatever the oracle technically is, whatever energy that is, and just what kind of, like, answers did you receive from it. And then, so I didn't get a vision on this one, but she also mentions other, like places that are just, like, that she would be interested in as well, but that she didn't really include a lot of information on. And one of those was Olympia, and that's, like, where the first Olympics started. And it wasn't an image, but it was more like a feeling, like this adrenaline almost, of this, like, almost being able to feel like I'm in a stadium, and just, like, cheers all the way around the stadium, and just like you're in the middle of a stadium looking up and you can just see everyone cheering. And I don't know if that's, like, a vision or not, but that was just, like, the feeling that I got from it. So I'm just literally writing down everything that I had some kind of impression about, whether it actually means anything or not. And so then the next one that I did get an impression and an actual vision of was, like, recalling spells. So it was all about if there was a time in your life where you either did magic or you experienced someone doing magic on you or something like that. And a vision did come to me for this one, which kind of makes sense, because I think there's been a long time where my soul has not done magic. I think this vision is the reason why. So I could picture myself, I had black hair, I was standing in this cave with these other women. I couldn't see the other women, but I could feel their presence. And we were standing watching this fire burn. And I remember just, like, staring into the fire, looking at the fire, and feeling like there was so much power to the fire, but that I was afraid of it. And so I have a feeling we had all gathered together because one of our sisters had been killed by fire. And that we were all gathering together to talk about that we shouldn't be doing magic anymore because it wasn't safe. And I remember feeling very solemn about it, but knowing that it was the right choice at that time to stop doing magic because it was hurting us. So I feel like that's why in my life now, although I'm still fairly fresh with magic, although I've been doing it probably about 7 to 8 years, like 5 or 6, 5 to 6, like deep in depth. But like a couple years before that, I was digging into it. I just wasn't really practicing it. And so I feel like that's why, although I'm still considered probably new in the world of magic, it feels natural. Like it doesn't feel unnatural. Like it just feels like something that I just feel like I'm used to doing, even though I'm still learning. It's like I'm relearning it because I don't, I in this lifetime, I just started, but I feel like in my past lives I had been doing it, but I've just let it go for so long. And so that was the image I got for that, which I found interesting. And I feel like it's maybe because my soul finally felt like it was safe to start practicing again, or at least in this lifetime it was safe enough to practice, because we're really fortunate, or here in America, we can practice whatever religion we want, and we don't, get burned for it, or we don't get murdered for it. And I know some other places don't have that luxury. And so, yeah, it's just, I mean, even still though, even when you tell people, yeah, I practice witchcraft, they just give you that look like, okay, sure, this lady's lost her freaking mind, but sure, you do you. So, and then there was another one that was kind of about how sometimes our soul will live one lifetime as one way, and then it'll come back down and do the other perspective. So for instance, like a thief, you'll come down as one life as a thief, and then you'll come back down as a victim of being stolen from. And so the reason behind this is that it says that your soul is allowed the most growth because you're allowed to see from both perspectives, and like why someone would do that, the reasonings behind it, but then also feeling the way someone else feels when it happens to them. So in this, okay, so this like thought or impression was a little bit weird, but it also does make a little bit of sense too. So stick with me. So for this one, I literally could picture myself like in a brothel type setting, and I could picture myself as the dual roles. So the lady, obviously, and there wasn't like any nasty details or anything, but it was just, could picture myself dressed very to the nines, going about my job. And then I could also literally picture me as a man, like flipping money, like flipping coins to like probably the ladies. So it was almost like the dual roles of how it felt. And the funny thing is, both cases are kind of manipulative in their relationships, right? Because both are playing a role, both are playing a part. You're paying to get that pleasure from somebody, but it's not real, and then on the flip side, you're doing that job to get money. So it's like very money driven, and it's not actually like relationship driven. And so I feel like, although I've never had any association with a business like that, or a modern day business like that, I do feel like that maybe is why I've been told I have a hard time getting in a deep relationship with somebody, because maybe in a past life it's always been shallow, like it's never been like, I've never trusted enough to be able to let people get deep enough to really know me and know who I am, and relationships don't work like that. So there also felt like there's a little bit of shadow work there, because it's also very relevant to my situation right now, going through my divorce. It's like, yeah, if you look inside yourself, I've always had walls up, and I thought I had found somebody who was able to take them down, but turns out maybe I still had a lot more of them up than I was willing to admit, and maybe I didn't want to let go of some of them. And by me still being walled up, it caused him to be more walled up too. And so I feel like there's something there, and I just found that to be a really interesting like vision. Like that felt very like specific. Like I wouldn't have just come up with that. in my little brain. So that was, yeah, I just feel like that's something that maybe I'm still holding on to, is that I'm guarded and I don't trust very well in relationships. And that might be something that I need to do more shadow work on. Yeah, it was all about healing and forgiving, and a cool little quote she wrote was, "All we can do now is strive to be better in the future and know that all souls are typically doing the best they can based on their perspective at the time." Which, yeah, that really makes it easier to kind of look at people's different perspective. It's not like that if something happens and it's awful that you don't still feel anger and hurt for being hurt by somebody. For instance, if they stole something from you or they hurt you emotionally. But it's the fact that, yeah, at that time, that's where that soul was at. And they are learning that lesson now. And then hopefully maybe in a new life, they would have evolved, you know, but it takes you having to experience that for them to grow. So it really, we're all working together to help each other grow inadvertently, which is kind of weird to think about. So yeah, and then she was talking about other places. So the two places that I mentioned at the beginning of this video that I feel like really drawn to and that I really want to go to, but I have no idea why, I couldn't tell you why, is Norway and then Thailand. Those are the two places that every time I hear something about them, or it's like see like an advertisement for like travel thing to like Thailand or something, I'm like, yes, I want to go. And I don't know why, I do not know why, but I can almost, with Thailand especially, I can almost picture like the land, like this image that I've seen before, not necessarily from like pictures or anything, but like my own image of this above looking down at Thailand. So I really do want to go there sometime, and Norway as well. There's something about Norway that I want to visit. Like I said, I can't tell you the reason why. I just feel drawn to wanting to go there, to those two places. There's an exercise on grounding that I think is really great, just because I feel like I always need to be more grounded than I am. Although I am an earth energy by nature, I feel like my head is always in the clouds. And it's funny because air is the least amount of like signs that I have in my charts, but yet I am scattered. I am like blowing around in the wind most of the time. And so grounding is something that you would think would come a little more natural being an earth-based sign, but it's not. It's not at all. So I like that exercise. There's another one on like arts, crafts, and talents, which I feel like would be really helpful for people, because there was a time in my life where I had no idea what I was supposed to do. I was just wandering like in the darkest tunnel and couldn't figure it out. And then I feel like literally one day the universe just smacked me in the face and I woke up and was like, yeah, massage therapy, let's go do it. That's literally pretty much how it happened. And I was like, okay, I feel like my family around me was like, this kind of feels like this came out of left wing. Are you positive? Are you sure you want to invest all this money to go to massage school? Is this really what you want to do? And for some reason, I was just convinced that's what I was like supposed to do. And turns out I was right. And so I was glad that I finally was just, the universe was like, get it through your skull. You're supposed to go like help bring back maybe some more natural healing into this world, because it's all pharmaceuticals, and I'm not saying there aren't a lot of really good doctors out there, but from all the ones I've experienced, we need to bring back at least where we can. I mean, natural healing does not fix everything. I am not one of those people who are going to sit here and say, oh, a massage can, cure anything on earth. And it's like, that's not true. It's not. But I feel like there needs to be a better balance between natural health and, more modern day health, if that makes sense. We need to combine them together and have them work together more efficiently than they are now. So I'm by no means saying don't go to your doctor, because please do. Because natural medicine doesn't fix everything. I feel like it can fix some things, but not everything. So yeah, I already talked about the war situation, and as well with that, war movies get to me like really bad. Like I actually get very emotional watching war movies, and it's probably just because I know they're based on true stories. And it's also funny because there is my sister is really into the history of the different wars and stuff, and honoring the people that fought in them. And so she has a lot of war memorabilia, like different uniforms and things. And at one point she asked me if I could maybe sit with some of those items and see if I got any like emotional impressions from them. And it was very strange because I realized that with my clairs I tend to like feel things more than I can actually like always see them. Like it's harder for me to see visions and stuff. That's why I was surprised when I read this book and I was getting images, because although I can, it's not like my main way of experiencing like psychic stuff. But feeling, I've always been an empath and I can always feel things. And so I was like, okay, I've never done this before, so I can't promise you anything at all. Like I don't know if this is even going to work. So I sat with a couple of her items. Like she had like 4 different uniforms that she wanted me to do, and then this helmet that she wanted me to do. And so I was like, okay, fine. And so I sat with each of the uniforms, and 2 out of 4 of them I felt stuff with. And then the helmet I felt something with. And so the one uniform, I was literally just sitting there, and all of a sudden, like I had my hand over the chest of the uniform, and it's like I could literally feel a heartbeat like coming from the uniform. Like it was the craziest thing. Like I can't even, like, it was like threw me off because I couldn't even like you couldn't make it up. Like it literally felt like I could like it like my hand was almost like going up and down with it. It was weird. And then the other one had more of like a vibration to it, not necessarily a single like emotion attached to it, but it just had like energy to it, as if there is something still kind of attached to it. And then the helmet was really weird. So I was sitting with the helmet for a little while, and then all of a sudden this pain shoots up my arm. Like I can feel it in my hand, and it shoots up my arm, as if like somebody had gotten, this is gonna sound gruesome, but like blown up, and their arm was like the place that had gotten hit. Then, oh, okay, so the one uniform that had the other vibration in it, that one I was given a vision. So when I had my eyes closed, I could literally feel the sorrow of this soldier like looking at a bunch of people behind this big old like fence. And so I'm guessing Holocaust, and he was like what I felt was like he was the first arrival there to help like free these people that had been in these terrible conditions for that long. And like I could see them, like all these like not very clear faces, but just like these ashen faces, like, and he's just like as if he just like panned down the row, and like you could just feel the sorrow from it. And I actually like began to cry after that, and my sister was like, "Are you okay?" And so I like told her what I saw, and she was like, "Oh wow." So, and then the one uniform couple of the uniforms didn't really have anything that I could like really pick up on. Doesn't mean it wasn't there maybe, but I just couldn't pick up on it. And so it's wild, like the different ways things come through, and like you don't realize like how much you're actually picking up on until you go back and think about these like certain experiences, and then you're like, no, that you did like pick up on stuff. And I've just never really like part of me is always like not always embraced like the clairs that I have, because like I wanted to be the medium, you know, I wanted to be the one that like sees the spirits and have like the spirits just like talk to me all the time. But I'm not a medium, and that's okay. I mean, I've had a couple occurrences where spirits have talked to me, but it's by no means mediumship, which is fine. But now I'm learning that they talk to me through different ways, and that I need to embrace the ways that they do talk to me and not be so hyper focused on just like the physical seeing things. Because I feel them a lot, and I feel them a lot more than I even realize. And so that's just kind of advice for anybody who's trying to learn their psychic abilities. I know like it's so much, I feel like a lot more emphasis is put on like the physical mediumship, but that doesn't mean it's the only way, and it doesn't mean it's like the most important way either. You know, like however spirit talks to you, embrace that way, because that is going to be how you get all your information. And it's not to say you can't maybe develop some of these other ways, but I feel like you are naturally born given certain ones that are a little bit more stronger than others. Sorry, that was a little bit off subject as well, but this book ended up being a lot more crazy than I originally thought it was going to be. There's another one involving like fighting for survival, like that I would want to maybe dig into, because I feel like maybe that would show me where I kind of hold on to some of these like deeper emotional wounds that I feel like I just carry around like a backpack that I definitely need to work on letting go. They talked about Tibet a little bit, and that's another, maybe not Tibet specifically, but maybe Thailand, somewhere in Asia. I feel like I have lived a past life. And like when I was reading this portion, there was a word discipline that like came into mind. It just like popped in, and also the thought of like mind over matter. And so I'm almost feeling like that lifetime helped maybe teach me about discipline in some way, shape, or form. And then also being like family being there for family no matter what, like always being a source that family members could trust. So maybe that's also like where my first lifetime of maybe being a little more empathic, because just feeling like that drive to be close to family. I don't know. I didn't really get like a clear impression. It was just like those couple words, and then just the impression of family. And then, okay, so then Australia, they talk about the Aboriginal Australians. And so I believe that, if I'm wrong, please tell me, but I believe that's what they want to be known as today. There is another very closely like worded one that I guess is not appropriate for today. So if I said it wrong, please correct me. But I found this one interesting because my grandma actually has a big fascination with this culture, because she's gone to Australia a couple different times and has been able to experience actual people from this culture that still exist today and are still celebrating their culture and life today. And what I find really interesting about them is that they are very in tune with the stars, like very in tune with the sky and the stars, and their art is very much like dot art, where it mimics like constellations, and it's beautiful, and it's very like specific, and I'm sure it takes a lot of time to do, and it's incredible. But so I feel like if I lived a life in this time, it's probably where I learned to love the stars, the night sky. I am that person that on like a sunny summer night, summer night, I will just sit and stare up at the sky, because I think it's beautiful and mysterious. And it's even better when you get into like a darker area where you can't see the city lights, and you can just stare up and just the billions of stars above your head, and it just reminds you how small you really are in the big world. And so I feel like if I did live a lifetime with this culture, it was where I learned to love like astrology and the night sky and just nature in general. These just they are so in tune with nature, like so in tune. So yeah. And then I said maybe that's where my fear of spiders came from, because Australia is known to have some mighty big bugs and big spiders. And I feel like my spider fear had to have come from a past life, because I have not had an experience with a spider in this life that has made me so deadly afraid of them, but it had to have come from somewhere else. I don't know where, but maybe Australia. Maybe Australia. And these are all just, I'm not saying by any means I've had past lives with all of these. These are literally these are just the thoughts that came into my mind while reading this book. So whether it means anything or not, I'm not sitting here saying, oh yeah, I've had all these lives and I'm such an old soul and like sounding really arrogant. That's not what I'm trying to say by this. These are literally just any of the thoughts that came in while I was reading. There is one about meeting your ancestors, which I'm trying to work with my ancestors more, which I will definitely be making a video on that, because I'm already experiencing a little bit of something with them. Not with my Russian ancestors though yet. I feel like, well, first of all, I'm speaking English to them, so they probably have no idea what I'm saying. So I'm trying to learn maybe a little bit of Russian, which I think would show a great amount of respect if I did that for them. I also got a Russian tarot deck, which I'm super excited about. It should be coming like next week, and it's all in Russian, so I'm hoping that'll maybe help me kind of learn a little bit too. But I did have a woman from my mom's side that she said she was 5th generation come through. And she was talking to me, and she actually gave me some just really good advice. So yeah, I will probably share that at some point when I kind of learn more about them. They talked about Lumeria, which I learned about Lumeria from the Y-Files. That's a really fun podcast. They're also on YouTube. And Lumeria is fascinating, as well as like Atlantis. Out of the two of them, I probably feel like I would have been more a part of Atlantis than Lumeria. And these were just simply like the oldest cultures out there, like the oldest lands that people don't even necessarily acknowledge were real. But while a lot of people that are more into like the occult or like ancient civilizations, they do believe that they existed and that they had so much more advanced technology, and that it was almost as if Lumeria was almost as if it was in a different dimension. Like it wasn't, I mean, there was a spot supposedly on Earth that existed, but these beings were almost in a different realm, so to speak. Their energy was different, like they looked different, it was, yeah, so that was interesting. But there was another journal entry about beyond the known world, like if you've ever been to outside of this world into the great universe of all of the planets and probably life forms out there. So you got to do a little bit of alien work if you so wanted to. Yeah, so there was those. And then there was an interesting prompt about like what your energy was before you became like human form. Like if you go all the way back to like the very like start of your essence, like what did that look like? What did you feel like? What kind of energy form were you? And so that one was kind of cool. All right, it's a little bit later while I'm filming this last part of this because my camera died, and so then I waited for it to charge and then didn't feel like filming the rest of this. So here we are, finishing up this video. So the last little bit of this was she was talking about how I guess it's believed that we are able to choose the lessons that we want to learn while we're here on Earth. And I thought it was kind of cool, this one passage, because it was talking about like somebody who was recounting what they saw for themselves in their life. And it says, in my life to come, I want to learn how to trust and to be of service to people. I want a courageous family, and I choose Brazil and the US because they are so culturally different. During my lifetime, a huge shift will happen on our planet, and I decide to come here at this time to teach, teach, teach. I keep getting that I'm here to help the children. We can't allow all the negativity of the world to bring us down. Trust, do your best, don't get caught up in small things. I need to believe in myself. And I thought that was kind of cool. And I feel like that would be kind of a cool exercise to do for myself as well. I mean, I already know that I'm down here to help heal in some kind of way, obviously through my job, especially being a massage therapist. And I think, like I said previously, maybe helping to bring back a little bit more natural health, to help kind of balance out, at least here in America. Like I said, we tend to be more all about pharmaceuticals, and just maybe that's like our first go-to, when there could easily be a better balance between being a little more natural and really focusing on tuning in to your body and doing massage, going to a chiropractor, exercising gently. And it doesn't always have to be take 50 different pills for every single symptom that you have. So I feel like that's definitely what I'm here to do, as well as in numerology, my number is 6, which that represents the healer. And so I feel like and it was always so funny in school, like anytime you took those like tests that tell you what you should do, it always said be a counselor, be a therapist, or something like that. And I was like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. And turns out, no, that really is where like my heart lies, is trying, keyword being trying to help in a meaningful way. And I know that's never going to make me millions of dollars, and I'm perfectly okay with that. I want to have meaning in what I do in my life, and I want to have a true purpose, and hopefully something that makes this world a little bit better of a place to live in. I know I'm just one person, but every little difference, helps. And so I kind of want to do the same thing, where I kind of meditate with my soul's true purpose and why it's here, and do a little journal on that, because what am I here to do? What are we all here to do? Like, what lessons did we decide we wanted to learn while we were up in wherever, that we wanted to come down and experience here? Good, bad, and ugly. And so I thought that was kind of cool. And yeah, like she mentions, one of the main reasons people come to seek regressions is so that they can find out what their soul's purpose is. There's nothing worse than not knowing like what you're supposed to do or where you fit in. But when you find it, it's beautiful, and you feel like you finally come into alignment with yourself. Sorry. So yeah, then there's another journal prompt about like before you arrived down here, and probably about what decisions you made and what you wanted for your lifetime and what you wanted to learn. And then there was more on Lemuria and Atlantis as well. I thought it was interesting how when they described like Lemurians, that it was almost like it was a different dimension. It wasn't. Like there was a place down here where they, I guess, made camp, so to speak, but then it was almost like it was in a different dimension. Like their beings were, it was different. Like it wasn't how older cultures were, where it was very much like humans. It was, pretty much this other race in a way. So I feel like there's just a lot of mystery that surrounds them, and I find that interesting. And then there's a journal prompt about connecting with the Lemurians, if you so choose to try to get in contact with them somehow through a regression. Then it talks about Atlantis. And so I feel like out of the those like older civilizations that people question if they even exist, Atlantis would probably be the one I would associate myself with, but I don't feel like I've had any like visions or anything that makes me think, yes, 100% for sure I lived in this time period, and I haven't even tried, honestly. So, but if I were, it would probably be Atlantis, only because turns out Atlantis has a lot to do with healing, which I didn't really realize that. I mean, the most I'm fascinated with Atlantis from like the Disney movie, honestly, and I always thought the idea of Atlantis was really cool, and I knew that it was a place that people believed existed, but I haven't done like deep research on it. So I didn't realize it was so involved with like healing, which is interesting. And being kind of around the water, I always feel like I kind of grump because I feel like I live in like the wrong area, because I would absolutely love to live closer to the ocean, but that's just not where I was plunked in this lifetime. So, and although I could move way out there, it would be really hard to move so far away from family. And so that's the reasoning behind not doing it. I think it would be really fun to have, at least be able to escape for a couple months in the wintertime to like Florida or something. That would be wonderful. But that probably won't be for years from now. So if I was part of any ancient culture, it would probably be Atlantis, just because it's tied in with healing, and I feel like that is very much what my soul is here to do. Not only like heal or try to help heal like others, but to heal my own soul too, because I just feel like there's a lot of things my soul just keeps holding on to that's like deep inside that for some reason just we refuse to let anything go. So I definitely feel like there's some major shadow work that eventually I will be looking into to deep dive into what I can do to, because does your soul ever just feel heavy? Like just heavy, like there's just things that are there that you can't even necessarily explain, but it just feels heavy. And I'm slowly getting out of it, but I feel like there's still some to go. Because I feel like I used to just feel like so much joy and like I was so vibrant. And then these last like 6 years have just almost sucked some of that life out of me. And for many reasons, obviously, but I'm relearning how to find joy in my life. And so we're getting there. And funny enough, I'm actually going back to, so this is totally unrelated to past lives, but I'm giving the Percy Jackson series a chance on Disney Plus because I was absolutely in love with those books as a kid. Like, in love with those books. I mean, I wanted Percy to be a real person, like, desperately. And that was just such childhood. And then I realized I started reading the first book again, and I was like, this is why I wanted to write. This is why, this is the reason that I was inspired to write in the first place, because of stories like that and Harry Potter, and but especially Percy Jackson, because looking back at how I write my books and like how he writes his, like I can see where I was drawing my inspiration from. It was obviously definitely from his writing. And so I'm like, yeah, I'm going back and reading all of them now and like trying to get back to the core of why I wanted to write in the first place. Because I was kind of debating as I'm editing my book, if I wanted to make some of it a little bit more adult content. But then reading back on Percy Jackson, I was like, no, I started writing because I wanted to inspire, middle school through like high school. And even, let's face it, if you're like me, you still enjoy reading some young adult novels just because it just takes you away to this fantasy world and of epic young heroes. And like, it was just bringing me back to wanting to be a badass kid, you know, when you're younger, and it just made you believe that you were the hero of your own story. And so, and I have to say, they're actually doing a really good job with the TV show, at least as far as like, far as my opinion goes. Some people would probably watch it and still just like grump about it, but I actually think they're doing a really amazing job, and they're following the book really spot on. And the kids they found to play those characters, they're doing a really good job, really good job. And that's coming from like, I mean, Percy Jackson is one of my beloved all-time favorite book series. Like next to that and Harry Potter, like those are the two huge ones that have just stolen my heart from a young age. And I've never found any series quite like the two of those. So, but yeah, so that's why I'm like deep diving, because there's a part of my soul that's also very creative, and it's through writing and creating that I also find myself and find happiness. And so if I can turn that into a career someday as well, then I will really just be living my best life, as they say. So that's a side note. Sorry for that. But yeah, just trying to get back into why I was writing in the first place, because there's been years and years that I have not really been even touching writing. And it's not because I didn't want to, it's just because I felt like this huge block. Like I just couldn't come up with ideas. And it was honestly probably because I was depressed. So, but we're getting back to it now. We're trying to get back into writing. I'm editing these books. I really want to get them out there. You know, even if, you know, 3 whole people read it and enjoy it, then, you know, that's something. Just sharing. I think it's important to just share your creativity with the world. You know, it's good to do it for yourself as well, but share that passion with everybody, you know? Even, it's not going to be everyone's cup of tea, but it's still just sharing your point of view, and there's something really cool about that. And so lastly, it talks about like outer space and like extraterrestrials, and like if you've ever come in contact with any of them. And as I've said in my other videos, I read a book last year about starseeds, which I found really interesting and would love to deep dive into that even further. There's a couple of books that I want to get and read that look like they're pretty big texts about that, and I find that would be really fun to learn more about. And I've never considered myself like an alien person of interest, but it's actually like more interesting than I even like originally gave it credit for. So there's an exercise on otherworldly beings, like if you come in contact with any of them, or if you want to try and talk to any of them. I don't know how much they, you know, convene with us humans, but probably do a little bit. And then if you really want to get into the weird alien stuff, I think I mentioned at the beginning of this video the Y-Files on YouTube. That one talks about all sorts of different kind of like conspiracies and like things revolving aliens and such. And just listened to one recently about the government working with the aliens, and that there's like, I think 7 or 5 to 7 different like bases around the world where there's like aliens working with humans and doing all this weird stuff. It was interesting. It was interesting and slightly terrifying at the same time. So if you're interested into that kind of stuff and you haven't heard of the Y-Files, give them a go. And then it also has like an exercise on parallel universes and like future worlds as well. And so that's another one that I would like to kind of deep dive into as far as doing like meditations on. And then at the very, very end, you actually do like a whole past life regression type thing that I will probably eventually do as well. But overall, I really liked this book. I got a lot more out of it than I even like thought I was going to. I thought it would be an interesting topic, but I didn't realize how many like impressions I would actually get while reading. And it's a lot of food for thought, actually. It's a lot of food for thought moving forward as to, I mean, like, where is my soul life going? Like, what plans am I doing right now to implement what my future self is meant to be doing? And looking back is sometimes the best way to move forward. Not getting stuck in the past, but just re-looking at things that maybe you've always been doing that has been leading you forward, if that makes any sense. So I thought this was actually kind of a perfect book to start the year off with, because you know, we are our past. We are made up of our lifetimes and our decisions that we've made in the past. Not that it's, you know, it defines us for moving forward, but our ancestors and everything in our past plays a part in our future. You know, it's just all this one big evolving moment, and we just keep evolving and we keep evolving. So the mistakes that we've made in the past, we can't see them as failures. We just have to see them as lessons learned, and it helps us to move forward in a positive direction and to really figure out what our soul wants for these lifetimes. And so it really is this epic journey. It's this huge epic journey, and anyway, it was really interesting to kind of dig into that a little more. I've always been interested with past lives. I know I've had past lives, like, and I hope to do even more research on it and maybe get some more information in the future from, I don't know, guides and things. So yeah, that is all I have for you today. Sorry this was a little bit of a long video, but it's a really deep topic. So please like the video, ring the notification bell. I try to get videos out every week. That does not always happen, but I do try. And stay curious, be kind, always speak your truth, and I will see you next time for another video. Bye.